Nothing without us. We are the heroes, not the sidekicks. Carolyn Charron reads Knit 1, Purl 2 at CanCon 2019.
Perfect. Okay, I'm Carolyn Charron. I like to knit. My character, the protagonist of this story, is a woman who knits, and this is how she discovers that her basement tenant is a vampire. He is completely terrified of the wooden knitting needles that he's given her. And I may have gotten a little carried away with my knitting recently, so I made spoony hats. If you're feeling a little low on spoons, each hat was knit with an awful lot of love and attention. I was thinking about this book, about the stories that I'd read in this book while I was knitting all of them. Every last one is individual. I think there's actually 2 hats that are identical in this. There's a lot of them. They're different sizes, small, medium, and large, and extra large. They'll be for sale at Renaissance Press's table downstairs later, so we can deal with that. But to read my story, part of my story anyway. This is called Knit 1, Purl 2. Maggie had a man problem, an unexpected one that no amount of knitting therapy was going to help solve. Somehow, she rented her basement to a vampire. She couldn't decide if she was angrier that he was a blood-sucking fiend or that he kept it secret. Either way, she had to decide if she was going to evict him before she actually confronted him. The yarn on her knitting needles grew tighter. She paused to loosen the tension and then rolled her shoulders to relax them. She ran a finger down the smooth wood of the needle. She wanted to stab it into the ball of pale blue yarn, but instead her hands automatically began a new row in the tiny sweater, her 15th of this year. She knit them for Mercy Hospital's maternity ward, but being charitable was the furthest thing from her mind right then. She barely saw the yarn as she tried to untangle her own thoughts. Annoyed, she shook her head, the white curls bouncing around her bifocals. How had she missed it in all the months Edmund had been living in her basement? He wasn't pretending to be a vampire, like Maggie's cosplaying granddaughter with her pale makeup and plastic fangs. He was real. Her brand new wooden knitting needles in her hands had been the proof. She glared at the smooth wood. Last night, after they'd had sex gently as her arthritic hips were having a bad day, she pulled out her knitting bag to show him her newest purchase, a lovely, polished wooden set of needles that didn't hurt her hands the way the metal ones he'd bought for her recent birthday did. He'd flinched away from them, puzzling her at the time, but in the middle of the night, she'd woken up with a sure knowledge of his true nature. Fortunately for Edmund, he'd already gone to his apartment, otherwise she might have stabbed him. She'd certainly been angry enough. How could he have kept this from her? She stared at the thin wooden slivers in her hands. They hadn't been her only clue. Another dead giveaway, pardon the pun, was the coffin in his living room. Edmund claimed he liked the unusual nature of it as his coffee table work area. She'd been amused by the idea. She'd even placed a teacup there once, not once considering it might be his bed. There had been other hints. The blackout curtains, the pallor of the skin, and never going out in the sunshine. He claimed he had a rare skin condition and had to avoid sunlight. She felt duped. Truthfully, she was more not annoyed by feeling tricked than by missing the clues. A twinge of pain cramped her fingers and she shook the pain out. She focused on the yarn for a few rows, the repetition calming her mind. At the suggestion of her doctors, she'd taken up knitting despite the ridiculous stereotyping while she recovered from the car accident that had broken her hip. And yes, knitting is very therapeutic. Aside, it's very relaxing. It had been one of the few pleasurable things in her life for a long time, until Edmund had moved in. Edmund, vampire or not, he was a lovely man. He was good company, even better than her husband of almost 50 years had been. He always seemed to know when her pain needed quiet and when to end the silence with a dirty joke, making her groan even while she laughed. Bent and frail appearing, she thought he was a decade older, but now she had no idea. And I'm going to skip ahead because I want to give you a last line. Okay. It annoyed her that he'd never told her in all the months since he'd moved in. Although if she were being honest, she had to admit her tenancy agreement hadn't exactly asked for those kind of details. She made a mental note to alter the tenant application just in case she gave him an eviction notice. She wasn't sure she wanted to. He was a very nice man other than the blood-sucking thing. Would another tenant bring her tea when she couldn't face walking 20 feet to the kitchen? Would he point out flattering clothing that fit under her back brace? And where would she find another lover who would be careful of her bad hip? That wasn't so bad.
Nothing Without Us is available on Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, and from pressrenaissancepress.ca. That's PRESSESRENAISSANCE PRESS.ca.